Welcome to Murder by Nature, where we discuss true crime, mysterious disappearances, and unsolved cases. I am your host, Jasmine Hernandez. So, this week's been a little bit weird. I got my first, angry customer. I don't even know if that's what I would say. But I just want to kind of remind everyone, everything that I find on this podcast is through sources that are out there. Each one of these episodes I research, I look into them, and I go through as much evidence and case files that there are. So if you're listening to something from me or any other true crime podcast person and you don't feel like it's right, reach out and educate them. Don't attack them. Everyone out here, including thousands of other true crime podcasts, we're just doing something that interests us. We're bringing light to cases that otherwise wouldn't get the light that they deserve. And ultimately, if you're close to that person or not, there's a lot that goes into why people do these episodes. For me, I'll put it out there, I do these because I feel like some of these stories don't get the recognition that they should. Some of these people, they get murdered and no one ever blinks an eye about them again. And to me, that's not the way that I would want. If something happened to me, I would want my story to be told. I would want people to know what happened. I would want people to know who I am. But that's why I do these. To bring light to these cases. To bring light to people that may be in similar situations, but they don't see those red flags. To bring light to people that may be in certain groups or know something that's happening and give them that little bit of consciousness, or to just bring light to people that are interested in true crime with different cases that they've never heard of. The true crime community is huge. Lots of people listen to it. Lots of people research it. It's something that fascinates people. For me, it's the psychology behind it all. Diving into each case and getting to learn a little bit about that person that week. A little bit about what happened. The person that they were, the person who they were going to be, and just sit there and daydream in what could have happened. So with that, I just want to thank you guys all for listening, going through everything, and just being a part of this journey with us. So we're going to dive into the episode for today. And with that, the references that we're going to go through are WVE Metro News, Herald Mail Media, WV News, Medium.com, Brown Funeral Home, WV.com, WHSV.com, Lawn Crime, Court TV, People.com, InsiderEdition.com, Reddit, Crime Online, ThePoachTimes.com, Heavy.com, and Oxygen.com, as well as Facebook, Dateline, and other various resources for quotes that we have found during this podcast. We're going to dive into this case. Berkeley Springs, West Virginia is a small town within the county seat of Morgan County. It's also known to be referred to as a town within the town of Bath. In 2019, Berkeley Springs had a population of 593 people. It's known to be one of the safest communities with very few crimes, but nothing compares to what they were going to be hit with soon. Riley Crossman was a gorgeous 15-year-old teenager from West Virginia. Riley was born December 22nd, 2003 in Martinsburg, West Virginia, and she shared time between her parents. Now, Riley's mother and father lived separately, so one lived in Martinsburg and one lived in Berkeley Springs. Riley was a beautiful, innocent soul with a laugh that would fill a room. She was a natural artist, a talented dancer, and had the voice of an angel. Riley loved babies and small children. They were always drawn to her, but nothing more than her little sister and two younger brothers. She was helpful, caring, intelligent, stubborn, and as dramatic as a teenager girl would come. Riley was the beacon of light and love for her family, and she was always very kind. In 2019, Riley was growing up and doing what most teenagers do, date. They were dating. Being 15 years old, like anyone else, she had a crush on one of her schoolmates, Hayden, and the feelings were mutual. Hayden and Riley adored each other, and they started dating relatively soon. And as they started to go into this cute kid romance, Riley's parents loved it. Hayden was bringing her happiness. He was making her grades go up. She was more engaged. They adored him, and they were so happy that Riley found someone so sweet. Now, with Riley's parents being divorced and her having to split homes between them, she would share time with both of them. But she mostly stayed with her mother. Sorry, not most likely. She mostly stayed with her mother so she can go to school where she was going to be with Hayden. Now, at Riley's mother's house, she lived with her mother, her boyfriend Andy, and her grandmother. Everything seemed to be going great. School was going great. She just started her freshman year, and it was a great start to that next chapter of her life. I don't know if you know, but like for me, going into my freshman year of high school, starting high school, everything builds you up for high school. And then you start. It's a new chapter. It's where you really learn who you are, learn yourself, and so much evolves. Now, being a freshman, Riley tried out for the gymnastics team at school, and she made the cut. This was exciting for her, as she was a model student and what every parent would want in a child. On May 7th, 2019, Riley returned home from school around 3:30 p.m. She saw her mother taking a nap on the couch. Riley's mother, Chantel, worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. She would work one in the morning, and the second one would be in the evening. It's an evening shift. But on that day, Chantel wasn't feeling too well. She decided that she was going to leave work early from her first job to try and get some sleep before going to the next one. At this time, Riley's maternal grandmother was at the home and stayed until around 7 p.m. And she was at the home kind of all evening just to ensure Riley was taken care of. After her mother went to work, they spent time just kind of talking and just really soaking in that bonding time. At some point in the evening, Riley went to her room to talk to Hayden and to go to sleep. Around 10 p.m., Chantel arrived home after work and noticed that Riley's door was closed, and she assumed that she was sleeping or talking with Hayden, so she decided that she was going to do the same and kind of head to bed. She was still not feeling the best and hoped that she would wake up feeling a lot better. I know we kind of all do this. At least I know I do. When I don't feel good, I try and fall asleep and then thinking, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to feel better. Usually I do. And this is kind of what her mother was doing. Like, I really don't feel good. Let me just go to sleep and see what happens. As morning came, Chantel got up and started to get ready for work. As she walked around the house, she noticed that Riley's door was still closed. She decided that she was going to go see how Riley was doing that evening, if she wanted to talk before she headed to school. But when she opened the door, Riley wasn't there. Now, this didn't immediately alarm her. It wasn't uncommon for Riley to leave early for school. She enjoyed spending time with her friends before class, and besides, Riley's boyfriend Hayden was going on a school trip that day. So she kind of just assumed that Riley went to school to kind of hang out with him. Now, as 3:30 p.m. rolled around, Chantel waited for Riley to come home. She wanted to see what was going on with her daughter before she headed back out to work that evening. But 3:30 came and went with no sign of Riley. Worried and angry, Chantel tried calling Riley, but her messages weren't being delivered and her calls were going straight to voicemail. Then Chantel got a message that Riley didn't show up for school that day. Now, that evening, Riley had a dance rehearsal after school. She didn't tell her mother about it, but she did tell her grandmother. And she decided that, hey, I know that this is happening in Riley's life. Her grandmother is going to walk over to the school. She wants to see if she can find Riley. She checked all around campus, but again, no Riley. As their search was starting to really become nerve-wracking, it wasn't until Chantel met up with Hayden and was told that he too has not heard from Riley all day, despite his efforts to call and text her. Now, Chantel decided that she was going to go back home. She wasn't going to panic. She was going to see if maybe Riley was there. Maybe she decided to ditch school. Maybe her and Hayden got into an argument. Maybe she was lashing out. Maybe she wasn't speaking to him. Maybe something happened that she just didn't know yet. But when she got home, Riley was still not there, nor was she answering her phone. By this point, Chantel knew she had to call 911. Something was wrong. As she calls 911, she files a missing persons report and immediately calls Lance Crossman. This is Riley's father. She lets him know that no one's been able to get a hold of Riley all day and asks if he heard from her. Did he see her? Lance decides that he's going to call and text his daughter too. But again, no answer. I sent her a message saying, Riley, I don't know what's going on, but the police have been called. This is getting serious. You need to call me now. At this point, the whole community is out looking for Riley. This isn't like her, and they're exhausting all efforts to locate her. They check the school, neighborhoods, community centers, parks, everything they can think of. But Riley is nowhere to be found. At this time, the police and the community members are asking if there's any possible way that Riley would have ran away. Did she have a fight with someone? Was she upset? Did something happen? Did she want to leave for a reason? Now, her mother explains Riley wasn't the type of kid to just leave. She had a great relationship with her parents, and she didn't have access to a car. She was 15. She didn't have a license. She didn't have a learning permit. Plus, Riley didn't have a complicated life. She had incredible friends, a caring boyfriend, a beautiful family. And as the day continues, the police decide it's time to reach out to Riley's friends to retrace her steps. Maybe they're missing something. As police talk with Riley's friends and her boyfriend, they're able to get a timeline of her activity that day. They learn that Riley was on FaceTime with her boyfriend until around 10:30 p.m. And then she was texting friends to about midnight that evening. Then at around 5:30 a.m., she called Hayden on FaceTime, but he didn't pick up. He was sleeping still. And after that, she went silent. None of her friends had seen or heard from her. With no sign of Riley and her cell phone still being inactive, the police decided it's time to start searching the last known location that Riley was, her bedroom. On her bedside table, the police found Riley's glasses and wallet, which struck them as odd. It's hard to run away without your glasses or your wallet. Then they found bloodstains on her pillow and bed sheets. As they continued to search for her, they were able to determine that the blood was also mixed with saliva. At this moment, the police knew Riley did not run away, and this was leading to something far more sinister than they thought. As the days passed, the community was coming together to help find Riley. Riley's high school was doing everything they could to help locate her. They organized a rally on May 13th asking the entire student body to wear blue and gold to show support from the BSHS community in efforts to get her home safely. According to their Facebook page, they did this just to kind of bring awareness. The school had asked students multiple times to kind of help out in the search. Riley's father, Lance, told Dateline, "We had several volunteer searches that we've organized. There's been so many areas that we've covered on-ground searches. It's been the worst thing that's ever happened to us. None of us are sleeping or eating very well. We do have a good support system in the community's support, but it's been horrific." The Morgan County Sheriff's Department planned a large coordinated search for Wednesday, May 15th. Volunteers were asked to meet near the Office of Emergency Services at 9 a.m. in the old War Memorial parking lot. They were still looking for team leads and volunteers, but received many volunteers with their equipment. They wanted to get their equipment out there. On a Facebook post, they announced that they weren't looking for any additional equipment, but they were looking for people who could walk and physically search the area. The Sheriff's Department was assisted by the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, West Virginia State Police, and many others. The search efforts have considerable resources and have logged hundreds of man-hours so far, according to the statement made by Morgan County Sheriff's Department. 1 week after Riley disappeared, on May 16, 2019, the family's fears came true. Near Tuscaria Pike in Berkeley County, the police found a decomposed female body. The body was found near a steep cliff at the top of the mountain, and the site was unsettling. The remains were in an advanced state of decomposition, police say. It may take months to determine the cause and manner of death, if possible at all. As news spread, the family knew something was wrong, and then they got the call. Chantel had to come down to the station. She needed to come try and identify this body. As Chantel got there, she was able to identify Riley from her clothes, and the autopsy report confirmed it later. However, since the body was heavily decomposed, there was no real way to determine the cause of death, or if she had been sexually assaulted. However, the state of the body was proof of a violent crime. They found Riley in a trash bag. She was covered in white, chalky substance that resembled drywall mud. Under her pants, she had a pair of shorts unzipped and unbuttoned. She had no bra on, and her underwear was ripped. Plus, she only had one untied shoe. The other pair was missing. The police suspected Riley's death of homicide, and the hunt for a killer began. As the family got confirmation and was proceeding with the fact that their daughter she died. She wasn't coming home. There was nothing that they can do. They knew that they had to be strong. They had to find out who did this. The police continued their investigation by interviewing Riley's father, mother, grandmother, her mother's boyfriend, Andy. These were the last known people to be around her, except her father. But they wanted to make sure they checked that one off. They lived in the same house, and there was evidence of some crime happening in her room. Now, while police were questioning everyone, one by one, each person had an alibi that was checking out, except for one person. On the day Riley went missing, a neighbor noticed a green truck in the Crossman's driveway. It stood out to him because Chantel was at work and Andy didn't have a license. This immediately was red flag, and they remembered it. And when they talked to police, they let them know. The police asked Chantel if she noticed anything particular about the day that Riley went missing. While she thought little of it then, she told police that Andy's reaction was strange when she informed him Riley was missing. He looked more skittish than worried. She saw him running into the house, grabbing something, and then taking off. He told her that he ran out to go look for Riley, but he wasn't able to find her. However, when Chantel returned home from going out and actually looking, she found Andy fake sleeping on the couch. He never searched for Riley. This was weird to her. As police continued to interview Andy, something didn't seem right. It was like he wasn't telling the full story of what was happening or going on. As the police asked Andy about his whereabouts on May 8th, 2019, his story kept changing. First, he claimed that he was at work the whole day. However, his colleagues confirmed that he left between 4 and 5 hours, they said, and no one was able to account for where he was. When the police questioned him again, he changed his story multiple times. First, he said that he went to buy cocaine from a dealer, but he couldn't tell them who it was or where it was from. Then he alleged that he went home to grab some drugs for himself and a coworker, but again, no alibi. No one could account for where he was. As the police started to interview his colleagues, they swore that Andy went to meet some girl that day and was gone for hours. He admitted to the police that he did drive to his home on May 8th, but only to shoot himself up with drugs. He said that he was there for about 15 to 30 minutes before leaving, though he previously told authorities that he never shot himself up with drugs, but he instead sniffed cocaine. He also said he left the home and traveled down WV89, but authorities pointed out that video surveillance wouldn't capture him driving along that route. As the evidence kept piling up against Andy, the police decided it was time to gather hard, cold facts against him. As they continued to reach, they quickly learned that the green truck that the neighbor saw in the driveway belonged to Andy's colleague. So the police are researching, and then they remember the green truck. Ding, there was a green truck in the driveway. Now, the police decided it's time to get a warrant to search the truck, and when they did, they found shocking evidence. The back of the truck bed had the same drywall mud found on Riley. They knew they had to confirm the match was from the truck and Riley's body, so they used a cadaver dog. As the police searched the crime scene for more clues, they were able to find matching sheet metal screws from the same construction site Andy was working at and from the truck's inventory. The police then checked the surveillance footage surrounding the crime scene and found Andy driving the truck to various places near the crime scene. They knew with this video evidence, it was going to be hard to find a way out of the case. For one more effort to lock down as much evidence as possible, they pulled Andy's phone records. On the day Riley was murdered, Andy kept calling a colleague for a temporary place. He was telling him that he wasn't allowed to stay at his girlfriend's anymore. He needed out. As police continued to collect evidence on Andy, they made a shocking discovery. On the night of May 7th, Riley texted Hayden, "I'm scared, babe." At 11:01 p.m., 12 minutes earlier, she sent him a text message, "Andy's in my room. I'm scared." The message sent, but Hayden was asleep at the time, so he didn't get it till the next morning. Andy called Riley's cell phone 3 times that night, between 3 and 4 a.m. This is all really strange for them. He's in the house, but he's calling her back to back. As they checked the phone records, they also found that he was dialing *67. And if you don't know what this means, it was a way that we were able to block our numbers when people were calling. So like, if I wanted to prank call someone, I would click *67 and then their phone number, and my number would come up private. It wouldn't show my number. Now, the police knew they had their guy, and it was time to bring him in for questioning. All the evidence they have, it pointed to him. When the police presented the pile of evidence against Andy, he started blurring out random stories. He claimed that he was sick and wanted more drugs, but then when he went to go get them, he saw a parked police vehicle with its headlights on. Though he fled the scene, he wanted to stay away for a while to protect his loved ones. And the police checked this out to confirm that there was no troopers stationed in that area on May 8th, 2019. With Andy not talking or being really communicative, they decided it was time and arrested Andy for first-degree murder of Riley Crossman, concealment of a body, and child abuse. As Riley's family grieved the loss of their daughter and the arrest of a person that they trusted with her, they waited for trial to start in September of 2021, 28 months after Riley's brutal murder. The prosecution team presented over 239 pieces of evidence, including 25 people testifying against Andy. First on the stand was Brandy, a dog handler who was certified in human remains recovery, along with her dog Rock. She testified that Rock alerted to the odor of human decommission in the back of the green Dodge Ram truck. That was what the suspect was driving at the time. Now, Brandy also pointed to the driver's seat rear well in the back of the truck as the area that Rock pointed out and testified that he alerted to the presence of the body and the screws and the drywall, all of that which was located where Riley was at. Now, defense attorney Daniel Kirkland pressed Brandy on whether the dog could alert for something simple like blood from a bloody nose on tissue, to which the handler said yeah. But Morgan County prosecutor Dan James followed up. There was a body in the back of that truck. It was wrapped in trash bags, bleeding from the mouth. Would Rock alert? Yes, she said. Now, the jurors were also given footage of Riley's remains where the investigators found them. She was wearing one shoe, which was later identified as hers. Another was found in the trash bag with her body. She was wearing red underwear and blue denim shirts, which West Virginia State Police officers said weren't buttoned and weren't zipped. She also testified that white powdery suspence was found on various parts of the victim's body. The remains were so bad that witnesses said throughout the day they had to use dental records from Riley's recent orthodontic spacers to even help identify her. Jurors also heard a lengthy May 15th recording between Chantel and the defendant, where she tried to establish a timeline and details of where he might have been the night of the 7th and into May 8th. Andy can be heard on the audio admitting to taking cocaine and heroin that night. Did you shoot it? Where were you speedballing? You can hear Chantel asking. If you did heroin and then coke, that's speedballing. Were you in control of your faculties? Did you stumble upon Riley's room thinking it was me? And then you can hear Andy say, no, come on. If you had made better choices that night, every other night up to this, then you wouldn't be in this position, she says. Now, during this call, she says everyone failed her. I know what you could have done. You could have not been a junkie. She told Andy, I can't figure out how she left her house. She's sobbing, so I'm stuck here with a whiteboard and study notes wondering where she is. I was leaving you anyways. This is not a life I want for my children. Going through this, it's apparent to me that she knew what happened. She knew that he did this. She knew something was going on. This was before he was arrested. I mean, he was getting questioned by police, but she knew. She knew something was wrong. She knew it had to do with him. FBI Special Agent Ellen Duff walked jurors through the footage that showed the Dodge Ram in question driving down the pike towards Martinsburg before pulling into the ROC's gas station off West King Street in Martinsburg. Andy can be seen getting out of the driver's seat, then opening and closing the lid to the toolbox in the back. He's also observed running to the store, where the interior cameras capture him throwing money on the counter and running back out, putting gas in the truck, and then heading out the parking lot. All these times are marked between 12:50 and 12:58 in the afternoon in question. Other investigators show footage of the truck on the route from Hedgevilles towards Berkeley Springs and then to Arden Norville Road, where Andy took the truck from his work site in the Red Hill subdivision. Now, investigators show the truck en route towards where the remains were dropped off on the pike at 12:26. And then coming back that way at 12:49 within the time frame that the prosecutor established would have allowed him to discard the victim's body over the hill, find a place to turn around, and drive back home that the cameras all caught him at. On the day that came The day that came that really kind of shook the stands was Hayden. Hayden took the stand, and he went to that courtroom with his testimony. Hayden loved her. And I know they were kids. But the way that you read through this and the way that their relationship was, they loved each other. They were obsessed with each other. And being that young and having something like this happen is traumatic. But the night she went missing, Riley messaged Hayden that she was scared because Andy was in her room. In fact, Andy had gone to her room multiple times that night. The prosecution claimed that Andy was so high on drugs, his judgment and senses were impaired, and that he tried to violate Riley. He smothered her with a pillow to stop her from talking, then wrapped her in a garbage bag and transported her body to his work truck. Now, after a prolonged deliberation, the jury found Andy guilty on all charges. Following the guilty verdict, though, Lance Crossman testified before the jurors to establish they were basically in West Virginia. The jurors can be tasked with deciding to attach or withhold mercy from the verdict. Under West Virginia state law, a jury can unanimously vote to attach mercy and allow the convicted killer to be eligible for parole in 15 years, or to vote to withhold mercy, therefore denying him eligibility for parole for life. And her father took the stand. She will be 15 forever to us. In 15 years, he may be eligible for parole. She only had 15 years. That's all she had. 15 years. 15. Lance said as he broke down in tears, where was the mercy when he walked into her room, where she was supposed to feel safe? Where was the mercy when he attacked her? Where was the mercy when he put her in a trash bag and dumped her off the side of the road like garbage? The family's attorney addressed the court. This time of year, she would be a senior at Berkeley Springs High School. She'd be getting ready to go into the next phase of her life. They'll never have that opportunity. They will never see their daughter again, he said. Andy knew exactly what he did to her. He knew exactly where her body was. Her mother agonized, holding out hope and praying that maybe Riley would walk through the door. In the end, the family's pleas were heard. The judge gave Andy 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole, and he's going to forever be in jail now. So, that brings us to the end of this episode. This episode was... I have a daughter. She's 15, and she's going to be 16 soon. And she's dating, and she lives in a split household. And this episode made me really reflect on my life and my child, and how I would feel if I never saw my daughter again. And it stuck with me for quite some time. I think a lot of these cases, we hear them and they have the same pattern over and over and over and over, yet it keeps happening. And that's why I do these cases, to bring light to these little things that people don't think are, just little blimps. So I know I stumbled a little bit in this episode. I was just trying to grasp my emotions, and there's a lot of pauses. As always, thank you for listening to Murder by Nature. If you enjoyed our show, please rate us or review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any streaming platform you're currently on. And be sure to come back next week for a new episode. Until then, I am your host, Jasmine Hernandez. Don't forget to stay safe. Don't get murdered or murder people, you lovely humans. Goodbye.